Hello, everyone. Today is February 15th, 2021. I'm here with Sean Reilly. How are you doing today, Sean?
Good, Krish. How are you?
Doing good. I was thinking we could start today off with a guided meditation.
Sure.
Would you like to guide us in one of those?
For sure. Do you want to focus on anything in particular or just free for all?
Whatever you think would be appropriate.
Okay. Sure. So, wherever you find yourself, you can just sit comfortably in your chair or on the ground, laying down, whatever you're doing, wherever your body is. Come into a nice, steady, and still posture. And then you just begin by noticing the entirety of your body from its head to toe. No real precise point, just an overall sense of body. You might notice some body parts trying to grab or call your attention. An ache, a pain, vibration, temperature change. You can notice that, but let's go ahead and bring attention to our breathing, breathing in and breathing out. While you're breathing in, you can do it from your nostrils, just noticing air come in as you breathe in. And notice your chest expanding. Maybe your shoulders lift. As you breathe out, you can feel that air coming out the nostrils, and your chest is collapsing, shoulders moving down. We'll just sit here with the breath, noticing the breath and the sensations involved in breathing for a minute or two. It's really exploring, becoming intimate with the breath. You can go ahead and open your awareness to involve sounds now. You can notice the sounds in the room, right outside the room, in your environment. Sound of my voice, sound of whatever it may be. Kind of distributing your attention outside of your body and around the space that you're embedded in. Not just confined to that space, but outside of that space too. What's the furthest thing that you can hear? What's the nearest, the loudest? So you're just noticing sounds. Maybe you're going back to the breath, fluctuating between the two. Maybe you've noticed a thought. been caught on a train of thinking. Part of mindfulness practice is just noticing what's happening at each and every moment. You can use notes, kind of log your experience. And we can close out the meditation just by some nice, deep, concentrated breathing. You're breathing in deeply through your nose. And as you exhale, just letting each and every muscle just kind of rest, move downwards, taking extra time and care on the exhale. And when you're ready, you can just move your feet, move your hands about, and slowly open your eyes and rejoin the room.
Nice.
Thank you for your practice.
Thank you for the guided session, Sean.
My pleasure. It's always fun.
And this isn't your first guided session.
No, I was lucky enough to teach some meditation for a year in undergrad. It was a lot of fun.
How was teaching meditation in undergrad?
There was one time, do you know what the hot seat game is?
No, I don't know.
Hot seat is like, there's a group of people and then one person gets chosen to be the person in the hot seat and they get rapid fire questions from the crowd, right? And so one time when I was working that meditation job, I got in the hot seat amongst my coworkers and somebody asked the question, "What's your dream job?" And I quickly said, "I'm doing it."
Nice.
So I think that answer, I really liked that. Was so much fun, dude. It's teaching meditation and dude, when you boil it down, it's almost silly. Like in a sense, I just get people in a room and have them shut up and just follow my voice and zone out for 15 minutes to 30 minutes. It's kind of funny to think about.
It is funny to think about, and it takes a commitment on their part
Yeah.
to do that.
Can you imagine just like being a random student, like seeing a poster for Sit with Sean and just walking into the library, like having no idea who's going to be in there, what it's going to be like? Let's take some courage.
Take some courage. Take some, curiosity. If you've never meditated, definitely courage. I mean, I don't think I would have done it in college.
Really?
I don't think, especially with someone that I didn't know. If I knew you, yes, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
not. Because I in college I wasn't into meditation or the idea of it
No.
so much.
When was it that you got into it?
After college, I think you had a big influence on me.
Yeah.
You were meditating, and then I started meditating, and it was helpful. It was grounding.
Yeah.
It was clarifying, very
Yeah.
clarifying. So it was nice. But like you said, I can't imagine. It's got to be tough. How old were most of the students you taught?
They're college aged, there were some graduate students that would come too, and they were a little bit older in their later 20s, but got freshmen to seniors, so 18 to 24, about college students. And I did a couple of other workshops with like staff members, so I got a pretty diverse range of teaching experience and how to kind of tailor different lessons to different crowds, but the one thing that is working in my favor is that, I mean, meditation, it can be really universal, really universally accepted. and practiced.
Yes. It doesn't have to be very what I guess it can be a secular practice.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be
Yes.
too spiritual or too religious or too
Yes.
indoctrinated,
Yes.
which I think appealed me at the beginning
Yeah.
and can appeal for, be an appeal point for a lot of people.
Right. I think for me, listening to people like Sam Harris speak along those similar lines and just speak to how pragmatic of a tool mindfulness or practicing meditation can be in your life was the catalyst, right? Or it kind of infused me with that motivation or that curiosity to investigate it for myself, right? Because
Yes.
for a long time, you hear about it being this kind of esoteric, Eastern, philosophical type of practice that people spend years and years and years and dedicate their entire lives to and shave their heads and go in monasteries and all that thing to perfect, you know? And that is certainly for a minority of human beings in the world. Less than 1% of people decide to go into that, you know?
Yes.
But yeah, I think secularization or I mean, there's still people that are going to be attracted to the spiritual side of it. And I think even if you go through it, if you go at it initially, looking for something secular, I think once you get into the practice more too, you can discover things that are more spiritual.
What types of things?
I don't know, man. I think the practice, I can only speak from my own practice, right? And like, we just talked about, like, we both kind of got into it with this secular state of mind for meditation just as a tool for our life, right? But as my practice has evolved and probably yours too, like just discover ways of thinking that just subjectively make you feel better and be a better person to others. And some of those lines of thinking involve like, is there a higher power? Or like, what is this spiritual side of me? Like, why can't I seem to eradicate myself completely of it? Like, it comes back around and makes me reflect on how I was raised and the different religions that were in my household and stuff like that, you know?
Yes.
And I think meditation has been a good space to like process all that stuff. And it's really rich with information, you know?
Yes. I think the way that you and I have gone about it with an app, the 10% Happier app,
Yeah.
with guided sessions, is a lot more fruitful than the solo meditations, because
Yeah.
the guided teachers, the guiding individuals on the app, they say things that make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you know, whether it be like being an eye within a storm, or maintaining awareness, or just these subtle things about loving kindness meditation or
Yep.
awareness, it's like that's really helpful and grounding. And
Mm.
it's you gain a lot. There's a lot of knowledge to be gained from there.
Yeah, those teachers are especially good.
Yes, I agree.
I don't know if I'd be able to get to the insights, or I don't know if I'd have a depth of the practice if I just did it solo without the use of an app or teachers like that. But that's one of the great things about the commercialization of meditation, I guess. You know, we have apps like Headspace, 10% Happier. They're spreading the good word of mindfulness. And yeah, it's just helpful because they point out things that I never would have thought of, but like you said, make so much sense,
Yes.
right? Because a lot of the things that they're batting home are like truths that are self-evident to most people at one point or another, but easily lose sight of. Like, change permeates everything, right? Like, we can all agree on that. Yet we're so surprised when change comes up in our lives. But we just admitted to ourselves a moment ago that change permeates everything, you know? And those are some of the lessons So I don't know. It's a little bit frustrating because when you're practicing mindfulness, you keep running into the hypocrite that your mind has created over and over and over again. And that's the fucking practice, dude. It's like judging, judging, shame, pride. Oh yeah, this fantasy. Oh yeah, that. Here's a crazy thought, you know? And then at some point you're just kind of like, oh, well, I don't really have control of this machine.
No, not full control.
Not full control, dude.
Oh man, and constantly running into the hypocrite of yourself, and just it's a roller coaster of thoughts and thought patterns, emotions, and
Yeah.
it's really helpful to be able to be aware of that in a more real time, closer to the, closer to the stimulus than farther away from the stimulus, where you've already responded. Whatever your automated response was, it took over right there. It took action. And say you spoke in a way that you didn't really enjoy,
Yeah.
you or we maybe enact went through an act that wasn't how we want to live,
Yeah.
how a wholesome life we want to live. And afterwards we just, I mean, I obsessed about the reason for doing this, you know ridiculous act, or say these ridiculous words. It's just like, because the response is just, you know your awareness is too not close enough to the stimulus.
Mm.
And meditation helps with that, bringing the stimulus and the awareness
Mm.
closer together. I mean, and that hypocrite will always be there,
Yeah.
but at least everybody else, you won't bring that hypocrite into fruition through your actions and through your words as much, as strong. And so he's not, he may be in your mind, and he may be, a very plausible reality to come into fruition at one point. But if you can bring that awareness closer to the stimulus of
Mm.
whatever it is, someone on the street who makes you angry, someone seeing a cookie that looks really delicious and you want to eat that, but
Yeah.
it's just like seafood diet, or automated reaction to someone being a bad driver.
Yeah.
And that's where I think meditation helps a lot, and you can really regulate your actions and words in a lot more effective way.
Yeah. I don't know if those benefits come online immediately though.
No, they don't.
I think that takes some time. Cause like, yes, I agree with all of that. That's so good. Like you're literally in real time as you go about your day, able to take a mental step back and like survey the situation and fathom the possible outcomes and being like, this one's better for me. This one's slightly more risky, but in like a millisecond, which is super helpful. But I think that takes a lot of practice.
It does.
I don't know exactly which form of meditation or like which instruction will get you there. But I mean, both of us have used almost exclusively that app with 10% happier. And like, there's so many different teachers on it that have multiple perspectives. But I think like the way I bring mindfulness into my own life is a composite of all of those different teachers,
Yes.
like some Joseph, some Alexis, some Sharon, all Jeff, like all of them combined, can kind of cherry pick different insights that they've gleaned from their own practice and kind of make that like a philosophical blueprint for my own life, if you will.
Yes.
But it takes a lot of time and hard practice for it to get to the level where you can carry mindfulness with you throughout the day. But I think a turning point, right? Like we've done walking meditations or sound meditations or eating meditations, right? That's so much, that's so far out of like the wheelhouse of what's preconceived as a meditation practice. But those little add-ons are like, that's what gets you mindful through your entire day. So as you're walking in your fucking hallway at work, like noticing sounds, the printer's going off. It sounds insane. And it kind of is. But it makes the day so cool if you can do it. Just like nothing is boring anymore. You know, like you're walking or you're just sitting in your own house. Like, how many different sounds can I hear right now? Or let me notice my left toe, the sensations there. Or like, I'm going to eat this meal super mindfully. Or I'm going to go to a restaurant and eat a beer and drink a beer and eat a meal mindfully by myself. See how that is. See what comes up in my own mind, you know? I think that's the turning point where it can start to just like infiltrate your whole life. The mindfulness aspect is when you take it on the streets, you know?
Yes. I think Jeff Warren has a saying in one of his meditations, like, I don't know what he's saying, but it's something along the lines of being more meditative is when you're able to make your day more meditative versus meditating more within your day. I don't think he doesn't say it on those exact way,
It's interesting.
but something along the lines of like, you know, eat mindfully,
Yeah.
walk mindfully, listen mindfully.
Yes.
And that's what the meditation practice is about. It's not about sitting down for, an hour, half an hour a day.
But maybe for a point in your practice, right? Maybe in the beginning of the evolution of it, maybe that's important.
Yes. And I think for me, even, through the whole way, like even today, it's like I like to walk a lot, which is a form of meditation, and yoga.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the sitting practice is very, very grounding. It's enlightening.
Yes.
And I feel more focused and like I have a higher sense of self-discipline when I'm consistently in a sitting meditation.
Yes.
But still, we do that with the pursuit of bringing mindfulness to our jobs,
Right.
to our family,
Right.
to our health. And that's what it's for. I mean, because at the end of the day, like I don't really want to sit down in the morning for half an hour.
It's insane, right?
Yeah, it is insane. It is insane. Just sit down and do nothing and not take in stimulus, which is good.
It's like, it's not couch potato, but it's kind of adjacent.
It is adjacent. It is, but it's way tougher.
Cushion potato.
Cushion potato.
It is so much tougher. You don't have a bag of Lay's chips on your chest.
Yes, you don't have a bag of Lay's
Meditating.
chips, and you don't have the television in front of you,
No.
which can be very good distraction for a lot of things. And for me, like there's this one meditation, one of the teachers on 10% Happier, Jay Mickelson, has a meditation starting friction, which is all about how it can be just difficult to start a meditation.
Yes.
Which for me is which is a truth for me. Like
such a barrier.
Such a barrier. It's tough to get over that barrier sometimes.
Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower.
Yes. But once I get over that barrier, I feel like that is a huge step, especially for like a day. Say in the morning, I don't meditate. Today, I didn't meditate in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I've meditated at all day. It's just tougher to start if I don't start.
We just did at the beginning of this podcast.
That's true. We just did. But before this podcast, I had not meditated all day.
Thank you for the correction.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. But I mean, I'm glad we did it then. I mean, that was a really good guide for me. Like the beginning was solid. Then Asha, I noticed, was chewing on one of my shoelaces.
I heard it. Oh, wow. Okay.
so so I was trying to distract her and get her over away from the shoelaces.
Sure.
And then the end, you started, I think at one point you spoke towards breathing in or something on the exhale.
Mm.
Do you remember what you said about the exhale?
Just taking care of the exhale and just allowing your muscles to really relax
Huge.
down as you exhale.
Yes. Do you have anything to say about the exhale?
I don't know which teacher has emphasized it, but there have been some teachers out there that I've heard that have emphasized it and articulated it really well, so that I got like a felt sense of how it feels in my body. It's like really releasing down, like zombie almost, or like a spaghetti noodle that's cooked just all the way down as you exhale. And some teachers will tell you to time it longer than the inhale. So you inhale normally, but then you deliberately kind of slowly let the breath out, all the while just relaxing yourself more and more and more the entire time, especially with the exhale. And I guess that like the adjective of being gentle with it or caring, right? That's just like a little loving kindness plug, adds a little more care to it, importance, significance, and probably attention. It recruits more attention too.
Yes, it does recruit more attention to it.
If you're, it's like if you have 2 attention points, then bringing care adds that 3rd attention point to it, 3rd layer, and you get more into it that way.
Yes. And I think one of the good things about bringing that attention point to, so the teacher's the sensei. What do you know what the student is called? I don't either. But
Pupil.
pupil, to the pupil's awareness is important because, when I focused on breathing, like a lot of the focus I feel like is primarily on the inhale.
Okay.
For me at least,
Sure.
because it's just that's how you get air in your body.
First one.
It's the first one. I think it's
Sure.
as simple as that. And then by the time I'm at the exhale, I've already lost awareness. So
Sure. You know what comes brings it all full circle though is like a lot of teachers will tell you to notice the space in between inhales and exhales, because there is certainly a space.
there is.
If you break down an inhale, you can categorize it separately from exhale, and there's space that lies in between both of those things, and it's usually just a pause, or like that's when I notice in my own body that I become ultra still, like very still.
When you notice the space.
The space in between inhaling. So at the very end of your inhale, right, there's going to be some amount of pause before your exhale starts, right?
Yes.
And you can experiment. And I think this is another cool thing about the exhale is at the very bottom of your exhale, you deliberately hold your breath a bit, not too long. I mean, you're not going to fucking choke yourself or whatever, You just deliberately at the end of your exhale, hold it, and you don't breathe back in deliberately. But you feel that stillness, and you feel that kind of bottoming out of your body. It's really nice. So if you can get that subtle with the breath and follow that entire loop, just like inhale, pause, exhale, pause, boom, 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 boom. If you can follow that for several rounds, it's big progress
It is big progress.
in someone's practice.
It's very big. I think that might be not an initial phase of practice, or what do you think?
Initial.
Like say someone is just getting started into meditation?
Yeah.
You think that would be a doable?
That one specifically?
Yeah, the space between.
I think they can. I think anybody can, as long as you're guiding them. But then the test becomes when you go silent in a meditation to see uh, how well they can keep that going, that attention loop. You know,
Yes.
but yes, but um, there's also like how long you can sustain the attention. You know, and that's what will come with practice, I think.
I agree. A lot. What?
But I think like you can just all the different insights, right? Like we talked about uh all these lessons learned from mindfulness practice or listening to different teachers sound very cliche. Most of them sound very cliche. And they've been used and they're beating like a dead horse. So even beginners can be privy to those insights if they're with a good teacher momentarily, right?
Yes.
But then to be able to sustain focus on whatever lesson is being emitted, that's where practice and experience helps. So just imagine uh, we're doing some form of loving kindness practice, right? And it's typical for you to first wish yourself loving kindness and then a close friend, stranger, community, world, right? Go out in tears like that. Anybody can do that if they're being told to. But then what happens when they're not told? They lose focus on that and their mind gets wrapped around in something going on in their personal life, relationship, test, emotional problem, fantasy, ice cream cones, whatever, you know?
Yes.
So say you're in a 15-minute practice, it's all loving kindness. A beginner will only kind of reap the real benefits of a loving kindness practice for 1 minute at a time here, 1 minute, so 4 total minutes, right? Whereas the gaps in between uh, instruction, a more experienced person can yield all the benefits of a 15-minute set.
Yes, that makes sense. And even for the guiding that you did um at the beginning of this podcast, I was much more aware during the points where you were speaking than when you were silent.
Hmm.
And
We had some distractions.
yeah, we had some distractions. That's for sure.
Have you shown Asha on a podcast yet?
No, I haven't shown Asha.
They'll come a time.
There'll come a time, yeah,
Yeah.
when she isn't destroying the place.
Destroy away.
Oh God. My dear dog. Oh, wow.
It's funny.
Yeah. But it yeah, it's not easy to maintain that. I mean,
No.
I there's one point where for one of his lessons on 10% Happier app, Joseph Goldstein says
Mm-hmm.
he was lost in thought and he was loving it.
Mm.
And I have been there too. And
Me too, brother.
yes, you too.
Lost in thought, loving it.
Loving it. Just like you're having this, like, I don't know what you call them with in meditation, but for lack of a better word, a daydream
Yeah.
during your meditation. And it's a great daydream. I don't know what's going on, but it's just like, ooh, whatever fantasy I'm playing in my mind,
Yes.
I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
And it's like I've gone through like 20, 25 minutes of meditation where it's just like that.
Yeah.
Because just, I don't know, I was just in some like loophole in my brain. It was
Very
silence,
entertaining.
very entertaining,
Yeah.
loved it, and but it was that's usually during a silent meditation. Rarely, it's
Mm.
much more rare does that happen when there's someone speaking or some sort of like sound like a voice with direction that you can use as your anchor.
Yeah.
but then, yeah, like it's easy to lose yourself in the lack of stimulus as well with the crazy monkey mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is probably easier for an more experienced meditator. It is definitely to take advantage of that time, and it takes repetition to be able to recognize,
Mm.
one, I'm lost in thought; two, I don't want to be lost in thought;
Mhm.
three, let me get back to some anchor points like a sound or my breath or a thought that I can be aware of in the moment,
Mm.
and try and get back to just this moment.
Yeah. That's tough.
It is tough. When you started meditating,
Uh-huh.
how long how long were your sessions at the beginning?
Um, they were not daily, and they would vary in length a lot. When I first started, I was just looking on YouTube for guided meditations, and um, when I very first started, I remember I would go to like a park near my house and do it at the park just because I wanted to be outdoors. And it was close quarters in the house. I was living with like my brother and JT, So um, outside seemed like a good spot to do it, but it was here and there, like not very frequently. And then I started to notice just a little bit of change in, you know, how I was being in my day. I was like, this is cool. Became more interested in it. And um, uh, the next step was probably like I enrolled myself in a transcendental meditation course. It was here in Mission Valley in San Diego.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And I signed. It was very interesting. So transcendental meditation is kind of like an organization, I guess, a brand, a style of meditating, where you use a mantra um, that's endowed to you. That's a separate story. There's like a very ceremonious ritual that one goes through at the end of your TM training, where your mantra is presented to you by a teacher in
Wow.
kind of spiritual one-on-one personal way. It's interesting. Very interesting.
Did you get a mantra?
I did.
Oh, nice.
You're not supposed to tell anybody else your mantra, which is another interesting thing. I
That
just
is
thought
very
that's kind of
interesting.
not that it's silly, but it's like okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, they have their
But
reason.
what TM did for me, like they're very keen on their practitioners getting 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. 20 minutes morning, 20 minutes at night. And all you do throughout the meditation is repeat this mantra in your head, the one that was endowed to you.
How long is it?
20 minutes.
No, the mantra.
A couple of syllables.
Wow.
And it's not in an English language. Probably Sanskrit. I don't know. Um, but I still remember mine to this day.
Nice.
Dude, sometimes randomly as fuck, it'll like come through my head during a practice where I don't even intend to use it. It's like,
Wow.
dude, and like TM, but back to TM, like what it did for me, it was really good. So like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. Like this is a whole society of meditators, TM. It's kind of like posh, and they're really emphasize that 20 minute, 20 minute. 20. Jerry Seinfeld's big on TM. Um, so it habitualized a meditation practice in my life, and for that I'm grateful. I don't practice it now because quite honestly, I got bored with a mantra based one, and I wanted to explore different avenues of thinking and different ways of like perceiving during a meditation practice. And that's when I really started getting to 10% happier. But doing TM made it an everyday practice in my life, which was good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then did you do 20 minutes?
I did it religiously for a couple of months. Yeah.
Wow.
I remember I was outside of my work at Hoolie's, the restaurant that I serve at, and um, I was probably coming from like school or something or volleyball practice to work, pretty tired, like just regular community college life, like way too late, drinking beers and like going to school early in the morning, studying whatever, going to work, all that shit, you know. And so I had about 30 minutes before I had to clock in. I'm like, I'm gonna meditate because I'm freaking tired, right? And so I pull up to the Hoolie's lot and my car's on, it's just in park, and I start to do transcendental meditation. And to this day, TM is the practice that has put me to sleep so consistently, so consistently. No other practice puts me to sleep like TM did. Um, but I was in my car and the car was running and shit, and I start to practice and I'm tired already, and I just zonk,
Wow.
just zonk, and then I was supposed to clock in like, say, let's say 5 o'clock, and then I hear a knock on my window, and it's some random stranger that happened to be passing my car and was just like signaling like, are you okay, you know? Like, are
Wow.
you good, because your car's on, dude, you look like you're drunk as fuck outside a bar or something. You know. And I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, thank you. And I look at the clock, I'm like 12 minutes for late for work already. I'm like, fuck.
Wow.
But I'm like totally zonked in this meditative mode, like crazy. Can't like walk into work looking like a zombie, you know?
Yes.
And I just explained the story, tell my coworkers, and they're like, oh, sounds like you, Sean. I'm like, okay. Went to work.
Nice.
Yeah, man. TM.
TM puts you to sleep.
Yes.
Wow.
Something about that repetition.
The repetition of the mantra,
Mm-hmm.
just a few syllables. That's interesting.
It's like if you're going fishing with one of those nets, you're just like constantly, and the fish are like your attention, just like round after round after round of the same mantra. Whereas like an open awareness practice, you're like fish once and then let let the let cast it wide or whatever, you know.
Yes. And then you just have to fish again. So it's always searching. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, TM was interesting, especially like the rituals, and I hate to call it how they indoctrinate, but I just don't have a nicer word for it.
I didn't realize it was that ceremonious in that.
Yeah. I don't know if they've evolved it since I've done it, but it was like they had me bring like 3 items to my last class. And these were all to be involved in the ceremony when your mantra was endowed upon you. And it was like some flowers, like a bar of soap, and somewhat like a banana, like a fruit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's strange.
It was strange.
Bar of soap?
It wasn't a bar of soap. It was another random item, but certainly flowers and
Fruit.
fruit. Yeah, there was a fruit.
And did you give that to people or
No.
you just took it back home?
Each individual would go through like, so you go into a room with just the teacher, and on like an altar is the picture of, I don't know the guy's name, but he's the founder of TM, some guru from India from like the 1950s, 60s, right? And he kind of set up transcendental meditation. And so you go into the room with a certified teacher of TM with those items that you brought, that they asked you to bring, and he reads a prayer in Sanskrit to the photograph. And you're just supposed to sit there like mindfully, and then you both sit in there for 20 minutes of a TM session.
Wow. You and the teacher?
Yeah.
And it's just one on one?
Yes. In my experience, it's just one-on-one. I don't know if they would do groups. I don't think so because they're apparently individualized mantras. So
You have to be certified as a teacher, I guess.
I would imagine. Some Joe Schmo like, come to my TM classes.
Oh, someone would probably do it.
That's true. Interesting people at TM gatherings.
Really?
Yes.
What types of people?
All kinds. Curious people,
Curious.
myself included.
Yeah.
You know, I don't count myself out of those interesting folks.
Nice. No.
All kinds. I saw like a mother with her sons.
Wow. How old was the son?
Looked to be about like young high school.
Okay.
Um, all kinds of people.
Wow.
Yeah.
People are looking for something. I mean,
Some stress relief, some answers.
some stress relief, answers, just fulfillment in some sort of way.
Sense of belonging.
Sense of belonging is very big. It's kind of crazy how the practice of sitting and doing nothing can help with all of that, or even some people believe and are willing to take the chance to take on a practice of doing nothing to,
Become closer
become closer
to yourself and others.
to yourself and others, and to,
Such a paradox, right?
yeah, it is a paradox. It is a paradox. Being closer to other people through this practice is really a paradox. Like meditating and yoga,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always just for the individual doing it. It's like,
Mm-mm.
especially for meditation, it's like there's, with that stimulus and response thing, it's like people do things that make other people upset all the time.
Yeah.
There are things that people do that I'm not that happy with. And it's like, that's not going to change.
Never.
Never. And we can respond in a way that's just, ridiculous to some sort of situation, or just, and it hurts the other people involved.
Mm.
And it can mean that we're probably in the wrong when you look at, when you take everyone's opinion
Into account.
into account.
Yeah.
And so if you're able to separate or bring together, actually separate the stimulus and response through awareness, then that response can be a lot more mindful, a lot calmer, a lot less, a lot more in accordance with the way that you'd actually want to respond.
Yeah.
And that can really help other people.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't do that,
Yeah.
it can be destructive towards other people.
Right.
You can say things that you would never even really want to say, but you just, for some reason, they come out of your mouth, or out of, my mouth,
Yeah.
or just, estranged with someone. The action of silence, which can be pretty devastating. But then, I mean, there's a lot of things, and really, it's not a practice just for yourself. You're doing it for yourself, for everyone, really for the whole world at one point, as crazy as that is to say. But
Right.
I feel like we all have to take on that level of responsibility.
Mm.
Not that we have to, but I feel like it really helps with, that sense of belonging. And it's not always that evident. Sometimes it is. Like every action we take has a butterfly effect that
Right.
can be like life changing,
Sure.
can change other people's lives. So,
way beyond what you can perceive.
yes, way beyond what we can perceive.
Yeah.
And so it's just like,
I mean, think how many people's lives people like Henry Ford changed, or just innovators of the past, or religious figures of the past. And their influence lives through the day today.
through the day, it's crazy. And they probably used, I mean, maybe there was luck, but there was probably some sort of mindfulness or focus or
Yeah.
some sort of way about living that they enacted that helped them
Mm.
to achieve those amazing accomplishments
Yeah.
in whatever it is, whether it's, some religious figure or Henry Ford,
Yeah.
who literally, a business mogul who revolutionized the world.
Right.
It's it's definitely a practice worth taking up in my looking back on it for me.
Yeah. I mean, it made us talk about all those things we just talked about
It did.
and more. I don't see it ever going away in my own life. I mean,
I don't think for me either.
I'd like to go deeper and deeper.
I would like to go deeper and deeper as well. I've stepped, I was, my practice was a lot stronger 2 years ago than it is right now. I've had the last 2 years have been very on off,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd like to go back, like hardcore on, like how I was 2 years ago, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, but life, I feel like life's really good when I'm consistently meditating.
It is. Yeah. Just thinking about like from beginner to middle to where we are now, or where we will go in the future. I think it's I think there's this certain plateauing effect as you start to accumulate experience, right? So like the learning curve can be quite steep in the beginning, but then you get over some curve and you're like, wow, this is nice. This is really, really nice. But you still see some incremental change as you go about it. And then at some point you're going to plateau. And I don't know if kind of absences or um, not as intense practicing schedule is a sign of a plateau, or just a lack of motivation or other things going on in life. But I think I've only been on a retreat and I'd love to do more. I plan on doing more. But I feel like a retreat, after you have a lot of experience, the retreat is what gets people out of plateaus. It can. Because you go really, really deep in a retreat, especially a silent retreat, you know?
Yes.
And if you're already experienced, then your normal 30-minute sit per day is only going to reap so much. I feel like you have to discover new meditative horizons, aka go to a freaking intense retreat, you know, in order to discover silence in a new way, or like relate to your emotions in a novel way, or it's I think that becomes really important. And then it's up to the individual practitioner how far they want to go, you know, like many of the people on that app 10% happier, the teachers, they dedicate a month or 2 months of their life to be on retreat every year. That's a lot of time, but they have certain insights that others do not, merely because they practice more and they go to more intense lengths to deepen their own practice, you know?
Yes.
And I'm always looking for ways, like whether it's running, I love to run. I like to study what I study, and like I like to push the limits and, you know, discover, kind of touch the boundaries, see where they're at. And then the great thing about mindfulness is I can mindfully be aware of those boundaries, whatever it be in running, how many miles, you know, school, what do I want to apply for, fucking mindfulness, how long can I be on retreat? And then mindfully make up a plan or a course of action to push those limits even further. If you want to, not everybody wants to, and that is okay. And I'm not saying I want to in every aspect of my life because that is exhausting. But there are certain things that I really love that have been really fruitful for me to this point that I will continue to investigate until I no longer find it fruitful or I'm dead. I don't know. You know?
Yes. That's a very good insight. The going deeper in with a higher, with a new experience of meditation, probably a more intense one for you and I for the points that we're at.
Yeah.
Because we both did Deer Park Monastery,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't a silent retreat.
No.
It wasn't an extremely large amount of meditation. It's just like
Mm-mm.
maybe 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours a day
Yeah.
of various types of meditation.
Sure.
So, like, I mean, 10-day Vipassana retreat,
Yes.
that would be, I mean, that would be that might be a good idea to
It's really
keep.
next level.
Yeah, it is next level. Not right now with COVID-19. I don't think it's possible, at least
I don't think they're open.
for 6 months.
You know, all those, at least like these Vipassana ones are free.
Yes, I heard.
It's insane.
That is insane. I'd probably donate something at the end.
They're like, come and get it. I dare you to sign up.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
dare
They're
you.
like, I dare you to sign up. Who's crazy enough to sign up for this? You know?
Yes, a lot of people.
Yeah.
The one thing though I love is like when I went on retreat, I loved the retreat, but at the same time, I thought to myself, I also love camping. I also love nature, and that's also a retreat in itself.
Yes.
Going out and I haven't backpacked yet, but that's something that I plan to do this year a couple times. And I feel like that's got to be pretty similar to a retreat in, you know, being off grid
Yeah.
and just being out there. Forest, bless you,
Thanks.
to be in an area where you don't even have a choice. You're just here and you're committed to it.
Yeah. That's a lot of courage, man. That's like one of the first things we talked about. Someone entering a sit with Sean or a guided meditation, random student on campus. Courage.
Courage.
That is hard. Courage is what gets past that start friction, you know?
Yes.
Fucking hard.
It's hard.
You know what is just as hard? Is discipline to maintain. It's like almost everything is working against you, you know? It's like everything that could have gone wrong does go wrong. It's like a test, like, oh, the mindfulness God's testing me or something, you know? It's really hard to do. But I don't know. Like, it just made me think about my first international travel experience. I didn't know where to go. I had ideas. Others were skeptical of my ideas. And then at some point, I just booked it. I just booked a flight. Just like, I'm tired of thinking about this. I'm doing it.
Nice.
You know?
Yes.
You just go.
And it's a relief.
You put yourself in it. You put yourself in the middle of it. And it's not always pretty. It's never always pretty. But you do it. And you take the good with the bad and the ugly. And you look back on it afterwards. You're like, damn, that was so cool. That was so growing. So learning, you know?
Yes.
You have to do those things.
That those that starting friction, that courage, those things that we have to do, the questions, the questions from other people in your own brain, they're so loud. They're so loud and overwhelming. And for me personally, like that's something that I need to really improve on is my ability to, you know, make judgments, maybe not judgments, but like stop analyzing decisions so much. Make decisions
Yeah.
more deliberately, have a higher follow through in your decision making, in my decision making, and live with the consequences of those decisions.
Sure.
Because, you know, there's always like, is this the best option for me?
Sure.
Am I going to miss out on another opportunity because I'm taking this one? And I feel like that
FOMO.
what?
FOMO.
FOMO. And I feel like FOMO is more likely if you don't take opportunities than if you take one and you miss another.
Yeah, dude, that's like a prerequisite for it.
What?
Not taking opportunities yields FOMO.
Yes. It is important to take those opportunities so that you know there's
You got to be calculated too. Of course, that's the back side of it, you know. And I feel like when we're approaching decisions, I mean, they vary in how impactful they'll be in your life, right?
yes.
You know, me deciding what school to go for the next 5 years, it's very impactful. I ought to take a lot of things into consideration.
It's very true.
It's not like I'm choosing Subway or Jersey Mike's for lunch.
Oh, you know, and it's
You know?
Jersey Mike's if you are.
Mike's way, baby.
Mike's way. Yes.
You know, but so the decisions we make, they vary a lot, right? And how impactful they'll be. But I have a sense that when fathoming about how one outcome differs from the other, our initial gut reactions will usually both be somewhat close to what ends up happening. Not exactly, but in the ballpark, right? And so I wish that we could just stop there and decide between those two. But what happens is we ruminate. And so say that gut reaction, say you're making a decision which professor you want to take at your next class. You know, you hear certain things about Professor A, you hear certain things about Professor B. Okay. And then you're kind of internalizing that, processing that, and then it comes to time to make a decision. You're signing up for classes. I think your gut reaction will produce some kind of intuitive motion this way or that way for Professor A or Professor B. But then if you give yourself more time, inevitably you'll start to ruminate. And your mind will make up new narratives about Professor A and new narratives about Professor B. Kind of like you're hoarding ideas about these professors now. And it's hard to overcome that because you got to climb all those ideas and look them up and down, look them up and down. That's so exhausting.
Yes.
And I don't think it's really clear-headed, and we've seen how destructive rumination can be, right?
Yes.
So I guess my point would be like I would hope, it's my hope that our intuitive sense about the consequences of option A or B are close to the truth, and we can follow one path or another based on what you think is wisest rather than spending more time and ruminating on certain things. But of course, sometimes we need emotions take time to process, and when it comes to bigger decisions in life, like when do I ask her to get married, all that stuff, you have to feel those things and they'll kind of distill your decision making process. So certain things take more time than others, but I like to listen to my gut.
It's usually right, I feel. The
Yeah.
gut. It's not always easy to listen to, though. That monkey mind has definitely got some things to say.
Never ending.
Never ending. Well, Sean, this was a great podcast.
Yeah.
Do you have any last words you'd like to say for people who want to get started in the meditation field or anything in general?
Just be curious. If you're curious about it, then you'll find a way. You'll find a way into it. And if you're not curious about it, then you probably won't. And Coors Light seltzer's not the best. Choose another seltzer. Mike's Way at Jersey Mike's.
Mike's Way at Jersey Mike's.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Sean.
Thank you.